So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Marissa. It is a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So, Marissa, tell the listeners about you and why did you write your memoir?
Where do I begin? So I am based in Colorado. I'm a Gestalt practitioner and a patient advocate. And it was in 2018 when I was diagnosed with a rare disease and a tumor at the base of my brain. And my whole life seemed to be in upheaval at that time. You know, I had other personal things going on, and I guess this diagnosis was this shift or turning point in my life where um, nothing was ever going to be the same again, and I wanted to document it. I wanted to document this experience I was having. And what I was finding was that there wasn't a lot of information out there about this rare disease or these tumors. And so I decided I was going to make it my mission to bring more information to it. But I didn't want to do it in a sterile, educational way. I'm very quirky and I like to add humor to things. So I wanted to create a really real but fun story around it that in a manner that really kind of depicted my personality. And so a little bit more of my background is I was an Ironman athlete and did some mountaineering. I was very into the outdoors and athletic, and that also changed my ability to do really strenuous physical things. And I kept being told by doctors that I shouldn't do any of that anymore. Basically, my body can't handle it. And that's when I said, okay, well, challenge accepted. I'm not willing to accept that. And so I love my bike and cycling, and I decided I was going to ride my bike down the Pacific Coast Highway from Canada to Mexico.
Oh, nice.
And so that became my story, and I interwove my diagnosis along with it. And the characters I met along the way are also in the story. And I just made it a fun but interesting and very real and authentic way to share a story that I felt I needed to get out there in the world.
Sounds interesting. Wow. So is it more fiction, or does it have nonfiction in there, or is it just the memoir all fiction?
It's all nonfiction, so it's all my real story. Like, it's very much what happened throughout the bike ride, throughout my diagnosis, and so everything is 100% true, with, of course, a couple creative sprinkles in there, but yeah, it's all 100% true. And like I said, I love to add humor, especially to kind of darker situations, or where do you find that silver lining, or when can you laugh at yourself or laugh at the situation? And there's a lot of from what feedback I'm getting, there's also, like, a lot of people have said, oh, I cried with you, I laughed with you, and so there's all of it. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want to hold back, and I wanted all of my authenticity in my story.
Okay, sounds great. So what are some tips to help the listeners who are facing adversity, challenges? What would you say to them with them going through that? Because with your story, your memoir, you did go through adversity and challenges. What would you say to the listeners?
Yes, and I'm actually still facing a lot of these challenges. You know, I think as humans, we, you know, it's not like a one and done, right? Um, so I started I got to a point following brain surgery and radiation treatment that I couldn't get out of bed. I um I was just so tired, um, and somewhat unmotivated, and you know, I just wasn't the same. And I remember getting to a point of, okay, I need to stop focusing on what I can't do anymore. I was no longer going to be an Ironman athlete, and perhaps there's some deep grief that comes with that loss of self, of parts of self that, you know, change, or which isn't always necessarily bad things. And so I started, but I started focusing on like, okay, well, this is the new me, this is the new body, this is the new, you know, outlook. And I started just changing one simple word, and I started asking myself, well, what can I do? And I took that word can,
Mm-hmm.
and I assigned words to that word, those letters. So
Mm-hmm.
can, capable,
Mm-hmm.
able, now. And what am I capable and able to do now in this moment? And some mornings, and I feel myself getting a little emotional over this, some mornings that was a, well, I can get out of bed and brush my teeth, or I can get some clothes on today. And then it turned into, well, what can I do now? I can walk to the mailbox. Wow, I can make it around my street, which is a mile long. Or I can take up painting because my body hurts. And then eventually it turned into an 1,800-mile bike ride down the coast.
Mm-hmm.
And my message is, you don't have to go out into an 1,800-mile bike ride, but you can ask yourself, well, what can I do? And it has opened my life up immensely. I have taken all kinds of dance classes and art classes, and I go to the theater, and I'm doing all kinds of things I've never done before because I was always training to be an Ironman. And now I feel like my life is way more expansive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one simple question and one step at a time.
So these were kind of like your affirmations.
Yes, yes, or yeah, affirmations or mantra, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so yeah, I would just be, okay, capable, able, now. What can I do? And that's sort of how that evolved.
Nice. So you said, I offer my audience a unique yet simple perspective towards letting go of life constraints and opening up to a life unleashed. How do you go about doing that?
Yes. Well, I remember, can I share a story
Oh, yes, you can.
that
Yeah.
speaks to this? So I remember I was only supposed to be in the hospital for 2 days, and I ended up being in the intensive care unit for 10 days. And I remember on day 5, I was really frustrated because I didn't understand the gravity of the situation I was in. And I remember the doctor coming in that day and telling me, like, I immediately was like, when do I get to go home? Like, why am I still here? And he said, well, you can shift your perspective. And now I'm really boiling. Like, oh, okay, really? Okay, enlighten me. And he says, well, you're most likely the only patient on this floor who will be going home.
Mm.
And that sunk in. Oh my gosh. And then the next day, the physical therapist came in and she was like, how about we go for a walk? But I had wires coming out of my chest. I had an IV and an arterial line, and I had compression boots on, an oxygen mask, and I'm like, what? No way! Like, clearly I'm a little tied up here. And she just helped me patiently untangle everything, and I made it around the entire ICU floor that day. And so it dawned on me, like, oh my gosh, I'm putting my own constraints on myself. She didn't see all these wires and tubes and things coming out of me as a deterrent or a reason for me to not get out for a walk. And so I started thinking, okay, where else in my life am I doing that metaphorically? Like, where am I putting limits on myself? You know, where am I holding myself back? And so what evolved from that was this question of focusing on, okay, what can I do, and not putting my energy towards what I could no longer do.
So did you come back with those words, those affirmations that you started, or after the surgery did you start those affirmations? Was it before or was it after the surgery?
It
Like,
was after the surgery, yeah, as I was sitting in the hospital bed, and my neurosurgeon was giving me this hard reality of like, and I needed to hear it. I mean, I was being a brat, like, but I was lucky. I was going to get to go home. And I mean, I'm getting emotional just thinking about that. And then the physical therapist, and I'm like, no, how am I going to get out of this bed? You know, and so it kind of all came together for me. And it literally was this very conscious shift in my mindset for me. Like, I mean, I looked at everything differently from that point forward. And I did struggle during my recovery when I got home, but I just worked that much harder of like, okay, what can I do today? What can I do? And I didn't judge myself on what I couldn't do or what I could no longer do. And I honored my grief as well of losing that who I was. You know, I allowed myself to cry and grieve that, and oh my gosh, it has made me a better person. Oh my gosh, I'm way better than I was.
so where can the listeners get in touch with you? Where can they get a copy of your book? And what is the name of your book? Do you have it with you?
I do, yes.
Okay.
So my book is The Road Unpaved, Border to Border with a Brain Tumor and a Bike.
Mhm.
And you can go directly to my website, risaaugust.com. That's RISA, August, just like the month.com. And on my author page, I do have a whole list of options for where to purchase, because I know that people can sometimes have a preference of who they support and where they support. And it is also available on paperback, ebook, and audiobook. And I'm actually the narrator for my audiobook.
Oh, nice. So say the name of the book again.
Yeah, it is The Road Unpaved, Border to Border with a Brain Tumor and a Bike.
Okay. So do you have any resources available on your website to kind of educate people about what you went through and about the diagnosis and what it's all about and stuff like that?
I do have links there, or even in the back of my book, I have also a list of resources. But yes, I do have that information there, and yeah, these are pituitary diseases, or I mean, sorry, pituitary tumors. So it's a tumor that grows on the pituitary gland at the base of the brain, and my disease that's associated with this tumor is called acromegaly.
So you have that on your website and stuff, and different
Yeah.
links so people can click on it. Okay. So Marissa, do you have any last words for the listeners that would, what would you say about unlimited mindset?
Mm. Yes. Well, as I said, you don't have to go out and do an 1,800-mile bike ride. But if you're finding yourself in a place of adversity or feeling stuck um, or blocked, is that ask yourself in each moment, in those moments of, well, what can I do? What's possible here? What am I open to? And when we open ourselves up to alternative, ways of thinking, those obstacles no longer seem insurmountable. Like, if we can't go through them, maybe we can go around them or under them or over them. um, but yeah, opening yourself up, and for example, in my situation, I asked myself, well, what are some things I always wanted to try or do that I never did before? And so one of those examples was taking up painting, and it wasn't an Ironman race, but now I sell my art worldwide.
Wow.
So if you stay open to all the possibilities that are out there, but start with, well, what can I do now in this moment? What am I capable and able to do now in this moment?
Wow. So, Marissa, do you have your art on your website, like your painting? If somebody wants to purchase it, is it on your website or?
It is, yes. It's called Voice and Story. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So is it abstract painting or is it more like,
It's actually, I took my inspiration from Native American talking sticks.
oh, nice. Okay.
And I start from scratch. I have a very specific type of wood I used, and the branches are harvested from my friend's property in New England. And I start from scratch and debark, sand, paint, and all the symbols have meaning, all the adornments have meaning for me. And they're, yeah, very powerful tools for people to express their voice and their story.
Wow. Sounds amazing. Well, Marissa, thank you for being on Beauty of Colors podcast.
I am so grateful. Thank you so much for having me.